Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today's permadeath journey is focused on this crystal blue lizard, and the origins of this lizard goes back a long ways. Way back before green, blue, red, there was yellow. Yellow lizards living in a world much different than the one today. Surviving in sulfur swamps and lakes, basically where no other creatures could survive. As the world changed and shifted, some lizards sought shelter in the earth itself, relying on the core of this planet to generate their heat. Others, like the reds, went to more hot regions filled with magma and fire. And then the blue lizard. Blue lizard's unique because he lives in the minerals and quartz-laden dungeons and caverns, where they also find these crystal swords. The materials for these crystal swords are beholden to the blue lizards, as not only do they provide warmth in their crystalline caves and homeworlds, but also provide great power. Power that was well known amongst all lizardkin, and all lizardkin swore to the ancestors, the yellow ancestors, that this power should never be shared with the living world, with elves, barbarians, humans, orcs. It's far too powerful. But the blues and the greens were betrayed, more specifically the blues, by the firekin. Firekin have leaked this knowledge and broke their oath to the other lizardkin, and now reds have been profiting off this for quite some time. So this crystal wizard, Zilson, is seeking revenge and retribution for his kind, as he hunts all red lizards who betrayed him and his people. He will do whatever it takes to find those who betrayed him, and also do everything possible to try to find other crystal swords in this realm and destroy them or bring them back to where they belong. To begin this quest, we're going to enter into Goblin Caves, just see how much presence of these red lizards we can find. Truthfully, Adrenaline Rush Crystal Sword is likely the best way to play it, and we are stacking a little bit of will, not a lot. So this will help us hopefully deal enough damage to strike fear into our enemies and be successful when we do finally run into those red lizards. Firekin is not to be trusted. Luckily enough, we did manage to land a crossbow in our first raid, and we're able to roll a pretty successful one into a crystal sword right off the bat. So this is some pretty light gear, nothing too amazing, but the new changes to Goblin Caves, you do need to be careful. Securing portals and keeping track of the zone is more important than ever, and we're going to have a pretty tough time dealing with all the items and weapon changes, trying to deal enough damage consistently with the crystal sword. I will just say, this was one of my most favorite permadeaths I've recorded to date, so the journey is definitely worth the watch. Picking up a few scraps, we have a few meds, so we're gonna just basically hang out and try not to get caught fighting too many mobs and then rushed by another player. I'm already seeing and taking the information from the kill feed and seeing we have a Warmaw, which means either Barbarian or Cleric. Either of those combinations are very frightening. However, Zilson's a brave lizard. He does not care about these things, even after the Ancients and many other Crystal Lizard Elders told him it was not the best approach. But Zilson's also a young lizard, just 250 years old. He does not have the patience of his ancestors or elders, and wants to deal with this problem head-on. He's often frustrated with the slow pace of decision-making by his bluekin counterparts. Red always been more hasty and more rash with their decision-making, and it has led them to some great success, at least in terms of profit and gold. Not something the blues or greens value all too much, it's something that needs to be addressed quickly. Clearing up a few more mobs, we're just going to make some space for ourselves. I really need to make the most of this crossbow if I do get pushed by a Barbarian or a Cleric, because getting Holy Striked, Smited, or Achilles Striked, Life Siphoned, whatever it may be, Blood Exchange, whatever that new change has been, is incredibly strong. I have felt it, it hurts, and I do not want to lose my lizard tail to the first player I meet. If we're playing this cautious, I'm almost certain a player spawns in that room beyond with the skeleton champion. We're going to make our space a little bit wider, give ourselves some options, and just maybe get a feel for the Goblin Caves before we engage anything too crazy. We also have a really good zone. If I was more confident in my Crystal Sword abilities, which will grow as this permadeath goes on, I would most certainly jump down to the lower levels of this area and loot, or at least try to loot the Lion's Head chest and the large wooden chest down below. I'm very tempted by this, but I know as soon as I attempt it, it is very likely a player will arrive as Zone is pulling everyone into my location. Just need to remain patient, and sure enough, we're hearing footsteps now, which means somebody is close by. Sounds like he is struggling with a few spiders. I may take my opportunity to land a crossbow bolt and get this show on the road. We hear a cleric buffing, and know we need to move quickly. Fortunately, Spiffer Mummy, little spider, takes a little bite out of our lizard toes. That's going to slow us down a little bit. Fortunately enough, we get back in the fight, and this cleric has spaced himself out perfectly, so that we can land a crossbow bolt before he gets his heal off. We would have landed two, but unfortunately, that spider web stopped our arrow in its tracks. He is doing some pre-buffing. Knowing a fight is on its way, we need to get some more space, as it is not great fighting a fully buffed up cleric with a crystal sword. Seeing how he has light gear, that magic damage isn't going to help us that much at cutting through any physical damage reduction he has, and we need to get as much damage we can out of this crossbow before we go into melee combat. Missing our shot leaves us in a very, very close call. And unfortunately, we didn't trap him in that other room, so now we have to space ourselves out with these throwing axes. He switches to his book, which means he's likely stopping for a lesser heal, realizing it's very difficult to catch a blue lizard with a war maul. He is very slow, and even though Crystal Sword isn't the fastest weapon, it is much faster than a cleric wielding a war maul. War maul has already taken out 2 players. This guy is likely running some pretty decent damage items. We're patient with the crossbow, landing another chest shot, giving ourselves the opportunity to maybe commit to this fight. Once I seen Smite, I realized that may not be the best option, and even if we can't get into melee combat, frustration alone will maybe be this cleric's demise, because now he's being chased by mobs, pushed into a room full of death beetles and spiders once again. If we can clear this goblin quickly enough, we may have an opportunity here to finish this cleric off. Hearing a portal in the other room, we need to get rid of this guy as quickly as possible. We hope he doesn't just leave this fight. Hearing him down below, need to make the most of this crossbow once again. And Spiderweb takes that away from us. Now's our opportunity to finish this. 2 hits. 3 hits. But he still narrowly escapes my crystal sword. That would have felt really good. Very, very good. But Zilson has grown in confidence, and that was a very good engagement to get used to Crystal Sword and what it can do. We had that cleric right where we wanted, with adrenaline rush burning, and before we can really relish the moment too much, we see a ranger drawing a longbow, which means we need to be very careful. Even though I have a crossbow, trading against a ranger with their damage right now, having little to no projectile resistance because I'm running weapon mastery, is a tough fight. Even though you might hit him once, he can just pop his field ration and be pretty much full HP once again. Even though crossbow is strong, getting stuck out in the open against a ranger is not ideal. Spot him fighting some mobs through this crack, and I'm very tempted to sling an arrow. I only have 4 remaining, so I need to be a little bit more cautious with how many of these I sling around. Seeing a blue portal close by, this will likely be the fight to get us out of this raid. Perhaps get us a few more items to keep this hunt for the red lizards alive. We jump shot over that ridge and land a nice shot on this ranger. Now we're into a fight. Missing this one, we're kind of stuck with the last decision, which is sprint, adrenaline rush, see if we can chop this guy down. Fortunately enough for us, Crystal Sword can deal some pretty crazy damage. Zilson has won another small victory. Unfortunately, it's not against the adversaries he wanted. As far as he understands it, most of these people are supporting the trade of crystal swords. All must perish. Heading back to the main lobby and merchant window, I did find some items we can maybe use in the future, depending on how long this journey goes for. Found a few collectibles as well, and in general, you can make a lot more money in Goblin Caves than you ever could leading up to this patch. Gold has been greatly increased across the board, and people finally don't seem so broke. There has been many a times, and we'll see it throughout the course of this, where some very solid amounts of gold are being pulled out of Goblin Caves. Only difficult part now is, as I mentioned earlier, you do need to be a little more careful with your planning. Don't expect a portal just to be there every time you get to the final few rings. I've had many situations, especially in that new module, where portal spawns way below me, surrounded by centipedes and spiders or God knows what else. Goblin Caves can be tricky to survive in, but all you need is one every once in a while, and you will make it out with enough money to start purchasing upgrades. You're going to see what we're doing here. Stacking willpower on Crystal Sword is pretty much the only thing you need to really focus on. However, I am going to grab that agility doublet just to give my character a little bit more mobility and get this lizard's tail really swinging. Padded tunic would be okay in this situation, but +2 agility sounds kind of nice considering I already have 1 agility on my hands, and those willpower strength boots coming in quite clutch to push a little bit of our damage up. So we're going to sell a few things, see if we can purchase that, and then head back into the dungeon with what we've gained. The 2 agility should come in quite handy, I think. Action speed is quite nice. Switching to crossbow and all those other things is also improved by action speed. Agility in combination with adrenaline rush isn't a bad combination. And with our quick look around the pre-game lobby, we did not see any of our Firekin counterparts. However, could be hiding somewhere in this dungeon. Dealing with this death beetle. This spawn is not horrible, but you can get stuck in these hallways if you don't start making space for yourself quite quickly. So, after breaking these pots and heading over to these crates, which have, generally speaking, some of the better loot in Goblin Caves in them, especially in High Roller, you can find a lot of good stuff in those crates quite quickly. So I highly recommend you check them out if you have time to break them and find a safe route out of here. But if you leave these rooms full of mobs in the exterior, it is extremely tricky to have any sort of room to engage in any combat or space yourself properly. The player starts to corner you in here. I have died many a times trying to find my way out of these rooms, running into mobs, being pressured by a player who you could tell has way more gear than I do. So before entering the large room you just saw, I always find it best to clear out the side rooms as quickly as you can. Always giving yourself somewhat of an escape route, opening a few doors, peeking your head in, clearing a few mobs, before you head back into that larger, more PvP-orientated room. That is just my personal preference. It is just how I kind of like to try to navigate Goblin Caves, because you can often feel trapped quite quickly. And sure, if you're super highly geared, that can be fun. But if you're lightly geared and being pushed by a barbarian or a really juiced up cleric, that can be very frustrating. And now that we have a way out, we can start making our way into some of these other rooms. Try not to pull too many mobs. Unfortunately, there's no one really around. There's a very quiet Goblin Caves run. And you'll see in the top, a lot of players have died. Not too many players left. Thought I heard some goblins fighting in the distance. Never really came to fruition, and we had to then backtrack in order to catch up the zone, which is pulling us into these kind of odd little cave systems. Caves that a lizard would very much enjoy. However, there isn't that much heat being thrown around in here, and these lizard feet with the steel boots we are wearing are getting quite cold. Having cold feet, it's not a great feeling if you're about to get into some PvP. It's even worse having a cold tail. Luckily, so far, that has not happened. After a while, nothing really happens. We get into the center of this circle, find a portal, and our hunt for red lizards continues. So we're going to take this portal. We did some looting. We did hang around for quite a while. And essentially, everyone must have already taken a portal or died. So this was one of the most quietest Goblin Cave runs I've experienced since the new patch to increase player count. I don't think they increased the player count in Goblin Caves, but they reduced the portals, which makes it a lot more difficult to find one near the end. And you can get stuck searching in these really, really dark areas, getting very unlucky. So we hang around for a bit longer, just hoping that someone stumbles through these cracks. Also hoping we find that red lizard we're trying to hunt. So we take what we can for scraps, find a few more items, and then eventually leave. And of course, just a rogue hiding in the dark is all that remains, which would have been a very, very difficult encounter if he knew we were pressing him. And likely he would probably hear us first, considering we have very distinguished plate boots on, which can be quite easy to pick up on. We did, however, find some throwing knives and throwing axes, some items we can sell, maybe buy some more meds, or look to see what we can upgrade. We buy a few more bolts, and this lizard once again continues on his quest to hunt those who wronged him and his people. Crystal Sword is an amazing weapon. I think it's one of the most unique weapons in the game. And to all blue lizards out there, I hope you are doing everything in your power to protect this sacred weapon and these sacred crystals. We can only hope that maybe if there are no red lizards in this dungeon, the problem is not as bad as it seemed. But something tells me elders are not wrong, and the reds are not to be trusted. Once again, we get the new module. We are going to try to clear out our spawn, get to the center this time, see if we can run into and destroy those who have wronged us. This time we're going to move a little bit quicker, try to get through some of these mobs, get out of this little back room area, and see if we can have any success. Crystal Sword has a kind of strange swing pattern. I will say the first one's kind of short, but the next two cleave exceptionally well. They have solid range. Really, the third swing is some of the best range on a sword you can get. It's very similar to a falchion swing when you're using it. And if you're using Adrenaline Rush, you get to that swing very quickly. You can deal out some pretty solid damage consistently if you space yourself properly. Don't rely too much on the first swing. Try to land the second and third one. You'll have much better success. If you're stuffing someone with the Crystal Sword to land that first swing, you're likely trading some damage. And it's almost better to try to initiate a fight with the second and third one. The whole reason why I have Adrenaline Rush is because you're going to be against classes that deal damage a little bit faster, especially fighters using Slayer or barbarians using a multitude of weapons. You need to basically initiate and finish the fight before they have a chance to trade back and forth with you. You cannot let them re-engage using second wind, and as you're about to see, you need to use your crossbow or any type of other ranged option when dealing with wizards. Crystal Sword is not the slowest weapon in the game that's two-handed, but it is still minus 30 movement speed, which is about 10 movement speed slower than my preferred Arming Sword Lantern Slayer Fighter setup. So you are a little slower, and what usually is your downfall is that first swing and its reach. Trying to land a crossbow bolt against this wizard give us a good chance to open this fight with some quick damage. Sure enough, we take our opportunity well, using sprint, diving into that wizard's face as he get a little too close. He should not have been engaging in that tight of space. This lizard's no joke. It's got mad speed, especially when you pop that sprint ability. These little clawed feet get moving quite quickly. Even though they're fashionably hidden behind some steel plate boots, blue lizards are innately faster and more agile than their red and green counterparts. Red, often more aggressive, more damaging, and greens are known for having extremely tough and durable scales. So we're using this blue lizard to the best of our ability. Zilson does not mess around when it comes to speed. Once again, we need to space ourselves kind of well here. We do need to try to keep things off us in case a fight is en route. Chopping through these as fast as we can with the Crystal Sword. We need to make sure this crossbow is reloaded, and we're going to need to use our speed once again. Using the pillar as an obstacle, if we can land an arrow or bolt onto this ranger, we may have an opportunity to rush this guy down and push him. His bow is not hurting too badly, but it's still a very difficult situation to try to trade damage in. It is difficult to make up ground, and we do not have projectile resistance equipped because we're running weapon mastery. These arrows are going to hurt just a little bit more every time we get hit by one. Luckily, we have found lots of meds, and we can continue to heal. Maybe pop our blue potion and see if we can get in close. It is the bread and butter and what we need to be doing with this crystal sword. Making my way up a level using as many pillars as possible to keep him from hitting us. We're going to see just how close we can get without taking any damage. I hear another player behind me, it sounds like, so we need to maybe push this a little faster than I would like. Making the most of sprint, we're going to need to pop adrenaline rush as well. Try to finish this ranger off as fast as possible. 3 hits, he still does not go down, but thankfully the 4th one finishes him off. Unfortunate, we did not slay a red lizard, but this guy was not being very friendly, and is likely here profiting off the misfortune of others as well. We're not here to kill everybody, but Zilson will not let anyone stand in his way from accomplishing his task and destroying any and all Oathbreakers he can find. So we continue on, got most of our HP back. We are going to drink this health potion, even though it's literally 1 HP. I am not going to risk going into a fight without my full maximum HP ever. So we're going to use the health potion. It may seem like a waste, but it could also save our life. And when you're using Adrenaline Rush, like I said, you're very squishy. You're taking a lot of damage. Every little bit of HP helps. I'm still looking for any red lizards. We kind of poke around here. I did hear a player close by when I was fighting that ranger, so it has me a little cautious. All it takes is one rogue or a quick shot longbow to really catch you off guard. So we're going to make our way around. We do need to get the zone, and like I said earlier, finding decent portals is more and more difficult. I do hear a player close by. There's a fighter with a longsword. Leaves us with an interesting matchup. We're going to need to get some distance. I expect he has a bow as well. And we will see if we can make the most of this stealth. Appears he is not too interested in pushing for this fight. And I did not want to get stuck up there. Did not want to get stuck up there looking for some PvP action and then get pushed by some mobs. So we're going to also check this route, see what our options are. And right off the bat, we can tell this has been cleared already, or at least someone has been in this room, as the spiders have been taken out by something. I'm determined there's a player in this, and eventually, yeah, we see the signs. There is a rogue or something hidden in the darkness here, which leaves me contemplating whether or not I really want to enter into this little scuffle in the dark. Even though this room is beautiful to my lizard eyes, with crystals and minerals hanging from the walls, I prefer not to get shanked by a rapier in the darkness. So, we're going to go around, and if we have to, we will fight that fighter with the longsword. I think that is the proper route. Usually I like to travel up rather than down, as I find just generally it's much faster traversing from top to bottom rather than bottom to top. And if we do get a portal in the lower levels, we likely can jump down and hopefully snag one. Gonna need to get full HP here. I expect this fighter to be close. And I do hear some steps close by. It looks like we got a Slayer fighter in the distance, and definitely something happening to our left as well. These plate boots are not very friendly when it comes to being a stealthy lizard in the darkness. I hear Bola, and this may be a really good opportunity to push this fight. Looks like a different fighter than the one we saw on the right, or perhaps it was a bard on our right. This is the plated fighter. This is the fight we're going to go for. Crystal Sword works fairly okay against plate as long as you don't smash it into that longsword. We need to chip away at him as much as possible with this crossbow, and already we've landed 2 hits. Trying to close the distance while he has bow. We're going to pop Adrenaline Rush and see if we can dodge some of that post parries. Trying to avoid the second swing as much as possible. As it's an overhead, we do catch him in the head. And then finally we drag our Crystal Sword, this Molten Blade, through his chest piece and finish him off. Adrenaline Rush can be very difficult to mix and match your attacks with. But my plan was to try to focus on using the stab only, and then if I was going to use the second swing, dragging it through the character's model and under that parry. We happened to hit over top it once, and then underneath it the second time, landing us a very nice Crystal Sword kill. Not seeing too many other players in this lobby. Probably best if we just take off and continue our quest and our hunt for the red lizards in perhaps a different dungeon. I'm convinced we will find one, and we will win this one. We just have to be cautious, we have to be careful, take our opportunity when it comes. We did happen to find some pretty nice collectibles in this one. Not really something Zilson is that worried about, as money and gold is not a situation or problem he's interested in solving. Does not really feel the need to collect all of these items, and truthfully, there's very few things he can purchase that are going to increase how much damage or how effective this Crystal Sword is. He's a natural with this weapon, and that is what is going to keep him alive. Other than perhaps some leather leggings or a Templar plate or armor, it's only real items that will bump up that willpower to a point where it starts to become effective. And sure enough, we did find an okay set of leather leggings. Considering this is a permadeath run, it could end at any moment. Might as well take this small upgrade and go from there. This puts our magical power bonus up to about 20 or 19%, which isn't horrible considering we have pretty much only the 1 or 2 willpower items. And we're going to purchase a few more bolts just to make the most of this crossbow and continue on. And in the lobby, entering the next game, we spot one of the very rare Oathbreakers themselves. Unsure what class this guy's playing, we need to do everything possible to hunt him down. We're going to move quickly, we need to kill mobs, and we need to find and make sure he does not leave this dungeon alive. He's likely working for a different race, either supporting the barbarians, or humans, or elves, or perhaps even goblins themselves, and acquiring crystal swords, and trafficking them through these dungeons. We need to eliminate him, and do everything possible to make sure that happens to protect the Blue Lizard homeworld. We need to move quickly, so clearing these mobs as fast as possible. We are not going to be looting too many items. We are solely focused on finding wherever this red lizard has entered and is heading to. A large cavern on the minimap to the right is usually a very hot spot for any players within Goblin Caves. We're going to make our way to that room as fast as possible and pray that we get to land the finishing blow, not somebody else. Cleaning up these mobs. It is not too many hits. It is working okay. 2-hit kills would be nice. I hear somebody mining outside, and perhaps it is that red Oathbreaker himself mining and distributing ore to the masses. You see there's a kill in the top right-hand corner, and we pray it's not the one we seek. We finally finish off the last few mobs and enter into this room. Do not see any players, though I did hear somebody close by, and sure enough, we have a fighter rocking the very, very popular Slayer fighter setup. Looks like he is attacking somebody, and maybe he is the one with the falchion that just killed that player. We're going to try to take a few pieces out of him. We cannot leave him alive because it is our task to kill the red lizards, not him. We will not let him take that away from us. Reloading our crossbow one more time. If we can land a body shot, it is our chance. And sure enough, all we needed was another body shot to finish that guy off. Usually, you land a shot, and with Adrenaline Rush Crystal Sword, that is your chance to all in them before they even think about using Second Wind. Checking for the body of this other player to make sure it's not the red lizard. We do not see any other dead players. I'm a little worried. I'm worried that maybe we missed our opportunity. I'm going to check this guy just to make sure we get a few meds from it. and see exactly what he was wearing. Green Falchion, very, very strong now with the recent updates. Luckily, we did not need to face it head-on with Crystal Sword. And as we continue our search, we do spot a player who has perished to that Falchion. And luckily enough, it is not the Red Lizard. He is still around. Like I said, I'm very, very curious if we're going to get to fight him. When I first stepped into this room, I heard some pots break in this area. And I thought, maybe there's a player close by, but I sort of forgot about it. And I do not see any signs. And sure enough, Red Lizard springs from the darkness, and we need to kill this guy quickly. He is taking chunks of us fast. We popped Adrenaline Rush Second Wind, relying on our attack speed and reach. And we've done it. We killed an Oathbreaker. We destroyed him. He had the upper hand, we had Sprint, we had Adrenaline Rush, and Zilson has completed his quest. The first time in many permadeaths, we have a journey that started and was finished, and it is so satisfying to see that we are able to complete this with the Crystal Sword. I felt very fortunate, very, very fortunate in that situation. And once again, the speed of the blue lizards is unmatched, and this red lizard is now one with the earth. Does not have any of the precious crystal or blue ore on him. And sure enough, we just want to make sure he is fully dead. Now, after discovering this, Zilson was correct. Many of the elders did not believe that this could be true, and that red lizards would be entering into these dungeons and doing some heinous and corrupt acts. We've caught one, which means there are likely many more. There could be a whole band of them in this dungeon currently, and Zilson must do everything he can now to try to escape and get this information back to his elders and the ancient lizards themselves. So now we need to escape. I'm hearing more and more players. Zilson's confidence is at an all-time high. However, this barbarian presents a very interesting challenge. Barbarians have had some very strong buffs to Achilles Strike and Blood Exchange, which makes them an incredibly difficult opponent for our Crystal Sword Lizard. We land this crossbow bolt quite nicely. This guy is trying to play a game with us of juking back and forth. This is our opportunity perhaps to finish this fight off before he gets any bandages or meds off, as that HP pool is quite large. And sure enough, we clip through the little board on the bridge, leaving us short of a bit more damage, and we miss another one. And this fight is on. Landing another crossbow bolt to his arm. Not take him down too much. We'll slow him enough that we can make our escape out of that Achilles Strike range. Trying our throwing knives. We land another one. We need to keep away from that felling axe as much as possible. Getting our crossbow reloaded. This guy is being aggressive. He certainly wants this lizard skin trophy to take back to his barbarian war tribe. Very, very rare blue lizard, and would likely fetch a high price on any black market. Missing our crossbow bolt, we now have to deal with this thing head-on with melee. Dodge out one swing, dodge out another swing, and Adrenaline Rush takes this barbarian's head off. Luckily for us, we did not have to feel the whole weight of that felling axe, and Zilson survives another one pretty much unscathed. Collecting a few items from this for our travel and our journeys. This lizard's tail is certainly full of confidence. We now have completed most of our tasks. We have fought numerous enemies, we've won countless fights, killing barbarians, killing red lizards, surviving stealth ambushes, nearly killing and destroying a cleric as well. And Zilson's feeling pretty confident in his ability, but also somewhat cautious against Slayer fighters. This Slayer fighter is very, very interested in just leaving, and that's exactly what he's going to do. So, we heard the final gate open, and our quest is essentially complete. One more stab just for good luck, and we are on our way. And I can say this is one of the first times I felt like this story deserved to end on a good note rather than a death. Zilson will live on, and he will continue fighting red lizards in the dungeon for as long as he may live. So thank you all for watching this. I hope you enjoyed this lizard's journey, and I wish you all the best of luck in the dungeons. I did start this one off a little differently with me having a bit of gear just to tell more of a story. And just to round this one out, I did want to share with you guys how I end up getting basically a decent amount of loot, enough to buy a good crystal sword and some other items in only one raid. We ended up getting pushed by this fighter. He wanted to fight and then instantly started to back off using his crossbow and throwing axes. Once again using sprint. This time we have adrenaline rush. We're going to do what we can to block him in this corner and use our shield to the best of its ability. We end up getting a nice block on that hit. We can then chase him down, landing some headshots as we cut through that second wind. Thankfully, he tries to turn and run. He's not good. Blue lizard, best lizard. Once again, I thank you all. I also thank every single one of you that have been tuning into the streams lately. They have been exceptionally fun. I love sharing these permadeath stories with you all, and I also love sharing live gameplay where we can chat about class changes and everything about Dark and Darker. I've enjoyed every single patch so far, and I love the lizard skin, even though I think it is one of the weaker options. I just found this storytelling and this idea very, very fun. And perhaps one day we could keep Zilson's story going. Or maybe we see it from another side, from the greens or from the reds. If you all enjoyed this content, please let me know. I'll keep doing what I can to put these videos out as I continue to get increasingly busy with my real life. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video.